Man, it really has been years since I focused on these, hasn't it? Why is this so popular? Well, this sure has been a while. Hello everybody, your local divine entity Eternal Potato here. Today I bring you a brand new challenge. One that put my knowledge, skills, reaction time, and most importantly, my patience to the test. Literally. Today, we're heading back into the wonderful world of console command driven Portal, taking the worst piece of advice from Portal 2 literally, and going through both Portal games at 10 times the speed. I streamed this few hour long trial of agony on my Twitch, so go over there and become a devoted potato follower today. Before we begin, some background. In Chapter 8 of Portal 2, Wheatley says that he needs you to test 10 times as fast.
A more sort of concentrated burst of science. Oh, on a related note, I am going to need you to solve these 10 times as fast. Anyway, just give me a wave, would you, before you solve this one, alright? I don't want to spoil the ending for when I watch it later.
Now, how does one test 10 times as fast? Console commands, of course. By enabling the developer console, we type in sv_cheats1 and host_timescale10, we can set the game to run 10 times faster than normal. Is that clear? Okay. Well, without further ado, let's start. Upon starting the game, I stopped it immediately to put in the commands. I put in sv_cheats1 and host_timescale10 and was immediately met with a beautiful sound. That was the indication that I was in for quite an experience. I went through the wellness exercises in record time and had quite literal blink sleep with a terrible static blaring in my ears. This simply wouldn't do for the rest of the game. I took some time to lower the volume all the way to 0 and then search for something to help break the silence. Luckily, I had something. The only channel on Twitch I'm subscribed to is Squealakilla, who focuses on challenge runs in the Dark Souls trilogy and other Souls-like games. He has made a royalty-free music playlist, so why not use it for my own streams? I added a new source to OBS, opened the playlist, and had the music play for the rest of Portal 2, hoping that I was not violating any sort of copyright laws using a royalty-free playlist made by someone else. If it's not clear, I have no idea how copyright stuff works. However, at the time, I had no clue how loud it was being picked up by OBS, so for the recording, I'm almost completely drowned out by calming piano music. Alright. Let me turn all the audio off here. Well, it's too late now. Back to testing. I let Wheatley in, and after 12 seconds, I was through the opening set piece. After another 12 seconds, I was through the first test. The following chamber was not hard since I could control the portals with the buttons, so it was just fast. I continued running at the speed of sound, fell, grabbed the gun, Mark 1, and zoomed through the next chamber. The next chamber was fun. Grabbing cubes at 10 times the normal speed was surprisingly much easier than I expected. The following chamber gave me my first timed event. Here, you have to drop a cube and raise a wall to catch it. This wall, however, is on the timer, so you can't just hit the button when it's too late. This wasn't hard, so I finished the chamber first attempt. Next chamber was just as easy. They were easy momentum ones, so we'll skip over them. I met up with Wheatley, and thanks to the 10 times the speed, everything he said was quickly over and we were on our way. We went through old Aperture stuff, past Dead Gladys, woke up Dead Gladys, and then was dropped down the pit. Now, since not much of interest happens right now, I'm going to address something. You may have noticed that the speedrun timer is in the bottom right, and that the timer is already at 80 minutes. Well, I did both Portal 2 and Portal 1 in one livestream. I started with the first Portal and followed it up with the second Portal, so I could play through them chronologically. I chose to start with Portal 2 here for a couple of reasons. One, it was the origin of the line about testing 10 times as fast, and two, it made more sense given the experience that was Portal 1, but that'll make sense at a later time. Back to the game. So I finally started chapter 2, went through the first 4 laser tests, and didn't have a single issue with any of them. Turns out lasers are not any different at 10 times the speed. Except on the 4th one when I had to use a cube to block a laser. That wasn't too hard to figure out though. I had finally met my first challenge, the aerial faithplate room. This room was hard because you're supposed to time your jump with that of the cube, and here the cube made a full trip in 0.16 seconds. So I had to time my jump to meet the cube, grab the cube, and make it to the other side in my own trip that lasts just as long. Chances are, you can see that all of this happens very quickly. The best strategy I could do is to get my timing right by stepping on my faithplate when it looks like the cube hits its, and hope to grab it in the air. Oh! I hit the cube, I didn't grab it. After 3 minutes of trying this, I managed to grab the cube, put it on the button, and carry on as if I didn't fail an easy test multiple times. Next chamber practically solved itself. Easy peasy onion squeezy. Next came the companion cube test. Here, I had a massive brain fart and completely forgot the cube gets emancipated. It is also here in editing that I realized my voice was quiet because my mic was muted somehow. As you can tell, I'm a professional. I forgot how to do it. I remember now. Anyways, I stole the cube after beating the chamber and proceeded to zoom through the next chamber. Here, I noticed that any sort of fall into a portal needed to be set up before I fell, as I had practically no time to place them midair, you know, since gravity is 10 times as strong when you're traveling at 10 times the speed. It's a shame that doesn't work later. I went through the hard light introductory chamber with ease. The chamber with the broken door mainframe was quick since it happened in 1/10 the normal speed. The turret chamber was a stealth operation which wasn't too hard. The laser chamber wasn't hard either. The next chamber featured me dying the dumbest way possible. Normally you can crouch under the hard light bridge to knock the turrets over. However, at 10 times the speed, I was looked at and died just as quick. I tried again only to run in front of the one turret and died instantly. Next go around, I was finally able to knock them all over and finish the chamber. I then thought it was funny to play hide and seek with a turret and then solve the chamber with no issues. Next chamber was easy, and that was chapter 3 done. Now is where we get to chapter 4. First chamber was easy, nothing worth talking about. Second one, however, was difficult. This chamber featured a timed mechanic of shooting portals mid-air. While normally you have plenty of time to shoot mid-air, 10 times as fast makes it a bit hard to aim, as when you go through a portal, the game flips you 180 degrees. This makes sense as it has your head always pointing up so you won't get disoriented. The issue is it also flips where you are aiming, so I had to account for the switch by aiming before falling and then getting launched. This wasn't too challenging, given I've played this game since 2011, so there wasn't any issue. The same can't be said for these in the first Portal game though. But that's a story for another day. I did the next chamber and got to the one where you escape. It was much more quick-paced, quite literally, but still mostly walking. I failed once when I forgot a turret shoots at you, but that was all. The rooms colliding felt a bit more intense than normal though. It was pretty fun. Chapter 5. Here's where the game gets pretty boring. A lot of my time was spent walking around in the dark. No real threats or challenges, apart from one jump. I left Wheatley behind and got to the turret decommission lines. Here, I struggled with another, you wouldn't believe it, jump. Here you have to jump off the conveyor belt to a vent, then to another conveyor belt, then down to a catwalk. I failed this every way you possibly could. After failing for 2 minutes straight, I made it to the fun part, turret testing. Here, I had to get past turrets who were either live or defective. The issue was, I couldn't tell as they were going too fast for me to tell if they were working or not before they moved on to the next turret. Eventually, I just said screw it and went through. I surprisingly made it. I swapped turrets with the one and went to the neurotoxin generator. This went down quickly, and one tube ride later, it was finally time to meet with Gladys. This whole part took about a minute, and next thing I knew, Wheatley was in charge and I was punched down an elevator shaft. One incredibly fast fall later, I was at the bottom of Aperture. I zoomed through this until I met another timed event, the vault buttons. You have 4 seconds normally from hitting the first button to hit the other. At 10 times the speed, that gives me 0.4 seconds. I moved my portals so I didn't have to turn and did it so fast I had to rewatch it multiple times to see when I hit the buttons. I went to the next area and accidentally walked backwards into the goo. Oops. I'm going to skip some stuff here since nothing of interest happened whatsoever getting to the first sphere. The first sphere was fine, it wasn't hard. Bouncing wasn't something challenging to learn at 10 times the speed. The next one was the same. The third sphere had a timed button, which took 2 tries and happened so fast it took me a little to realize I'd gotten up onto the ledge. I got to the chamber where you make the cube bounce, and seeing this, I thought this was going to be awful. But the cube bouncing kind of stayed to one side of the chamber, so I went over there and was able to catch it, and then I dropped it, and I caught it and dropped it a couple more times before I managed to catch it normally. I put the cube on the other button and got the chamber done. I went through like normal and encountered another quick-time portal chute. Here, I encountered a funny mechanic in which within a certain range of looking either down or up, the camera will just focus either directly above or below you. This made slowly adjusting my aim hard as it would constantly be getting reset. I eventually made it, turned on the orange juice, stuck a potato onto my portal gun, and made it to Chapter 7. The first chamber wasn't hard. Turns out propulsion gel does not make going at 10 times as fast a real challenge. The next chamber was the reason why guardrails were invented. I fell off the edge multiple times, faster than I could comprehend. I got it done, eventually, and was on to the white gel station. It was here in editing that I realized just how short propulsion gel tests were. Only 2 spheres later, and it was time for a new gel. I got through there, and it was on to the last sphere. Here, I coated the entire test with milk, and that was about it. I carried on and reached the worst thing yet, the elevator shaft. Here, I had more quick time things to do, which really wasn't fun. After an agonizing 3 minutes that was more disorienting than a roller coaster, I made it. To save time, I went through this next section as normal. It wasn't hard, just boring, so I'm skipping it. Chapter 8. Now it's back to the real science. I started out by struggling to put a cube on a button. I got through the next chamber twice in record time, I think. The funnel chambers now no longer took 15 minutes of waiting to get something from one point to another since all of them were overclocked. Since most of these chambers were funnels, they were pretty repetitive and not really worth spending time on. So here's a quick rundown of each boring chamber. In Chamber 6, I immediately started by launching myself into the giant monitor. It was also here that I made the same mistake I did long ago. Yeah, I crouched and got sniped by a turret. It only happened once and that was it. Next came the chamber that this whole idea came from, and I planned on recording it now during this, but I forgot when it was said. So I turned on the subtitles and then finished the chamber. I set the time back to 1 to get a clip of Wheatley saying it, but he didn't say it. Fast, all right?
Oh, you just solved it, didn't you? I told you to tell me. Why are you making this so hard for me?
He says in the beginning, doesn't he? Turns out, he says this at the beginning of the chamber, so I missed that opportunity and would have to go through Chapter 8 all over again. Darn. It's okay, I went back through and got the Breaking the Monitors achievement, so it wasn't entirely wasted. I went back to 10 speed, broke the laws of the universe for the sake of it, and went through the rest of the test. The lasers were kind of fun to push to the last second, but they weren't really as hard of an obstacle as you might think. Next chamber was one of the most chambers I've ever solved. Yeah, I don't have much to say about this one. The next one was kind of challenging. I had to make sure I was always ahead of the gel so it didn't all splat against the wall. It took a few attempts, but eventually I got rid of all the turrets, pushed the button, and flew to the end, finishing Chapter 8. As some random guy once said, we're in the end game now. Chapter 9, the part where he kills you. Man, I'm surprised I'm still alive. The benefit of having it 10 times as fast is the whole intro set piece gets done 10 times as fast. I escaped the trap at what looks like to be the last second, but since it's at 10 times the speed, I can't tell if it's normal or if I'm cutting it close. I got through the first bit problemless, sped past the faulty turrets, knocked down the active ones, jumped into a funnel, and dove into the goo below. I made it the second time and continued on as you're supposed to. I made it past the turrets using a repulsion gel mortar and got to the propulsion conveyor. I launched a mine to shut Wheatley up and another to break the gel. I coated the bridge with speed juice and flew off the edge. I tried again and did the exact same thing. I did a third attempt and this time I didn't fall off. I got crushed. I made it the fourth time though. I was able to make it the rest of the way to Wheatley's room, and now was where testing 10 times as fast would really matter. Upon entering the fight, he started rambling on. Once the fight started, I ran behind the conversion gel and his mines blew it up. Since I have played this game before multiple times, I knew where to set the portals for this part and hit him insanely fast. With him disabled, I ran over, grabbed the space core, and seemingly beamed him up on the Wheatley. I dropped him. With space core up, I ran to change my portals and was popped by about a dozen mines. I was busy looking at my Twitch, so when I spawned, I died instantly. I Usain bolted as soon as I spawned and ran around the room. I was able to hit him and then struggled to get the adventure core. I beat the clock and put him on. Any observant of you might have noticed that I managed to do this with 6 seconds on the clock. This is actually 0.6 seconds my time. I ran out of range to place my portal behind him when I was sniped by my daily recommended intake of explosives. I had no clue I could get hit with them from the edge of the room. In classic me fashion, I died this exact same way on my next attempt. And again, and again. I had 2 minutes to do this, which, for me, is 12 seconds. I had no time to lose, so in a moment of absolute gaming, I placed my portals first try, placed him for the jump to the fact core, grabbed the fact core first try, and added him to the others with half my time to spare. Here, the gel got washed away, I got blown up again, but this time I didn't die, and got sucked into space at a world record pace. The cutscene played out, Wheatley pulled a Matt Damon from Interstellar, and I was pulled back. I awoke seeing subtitles overlapping. The game was done, the final cutscene was playing, which was independent of the time rate, so I stopped the timer, stopped the music, and jammed out to Turret Opera as I got fired from Aperture Laboratories. Oh, Master Volume has to be up too? That's stupid. This is all set speed. Fanfare for
Callaghan,
the field. Unironically, where I live. Oh. So apparently that's not... Yeah, it turns out GLaDOS can sing at 10 times the speed. Who knew? Well, there you have it. Turns out the game in which the line about testing 10 times as fast originates can actually be beaten 10 times as fast. It wasn't truly challenging apart from a few things. Granted, I have played this game a lot, so there's nothing new to learn here. But otherwise, it was just like playing the game. A major factor in this was probably because my mouse wasn't affected by the time acceleration, which allowed for a more controlled experience. Because if it wasn't, this would have been pure agony. Now that's it for Portal 2, but what about the first Portal? I started with it for this stream. How did that go? Well, this game wasn't too crazy. That can't be said about the first Portal. I started this video duology with this one since it was, all things considered, the most enjoyable part. Portal, however, would test me in a whole new way. Rather than test my cognitive ability, it would push my sanity to its limits, as I spend just as much time in a much smaller game trying to beat the first Portal, also at 10 times as fast. That will have to wait until next time though. And yes, I will provide closure on the video series for the first time in my YouTube career. College has been starting up the past few weeks, and an astrophysics degree is pretty time consuming, so I want to get this done before things really get busy. If you enjoyed this, like this video as it tells me that my absolute suffering was somehow entertaining. Subscribing also helps in that same way. Chances are, for a couple of hours I'll be streaming on twitch.tv/TheEternalPotato. I plan on doing more dumb stuff like this in the future, and I want to make it more frequent than video uploads, so be sure you follow me over there, so you can see all of my stupidity in its natural habitat. Plus, making yourself a devout potato follower will make you consume more oxygen per breath. It's scientifically true. Trust me. I have no clue when part 2 will be done, so please be patient. Until next time, friends, I don't know, stay hydrated.
I'm in space.